Hey folks, Fernando doing another video for the Modern Survivalist, and it seems that China is about to invade Taiwan. If it's not, it's very close. I mean, it's closer than it's ever been in recent history. You're looking at a very volatile scenario right now. This is what's being said in this regard. This is from the angle from Laura Ingram.
5 years ago, Speaker Gingrich visited Taiwan. It was completely wrong. The U.S. side should draw lessons from it instead of making repeated mistakes.
It's now, well, let me just tell you one thing. It's 10 a.m. in Taiwan, and to her credit, Nancy Pelosi didn't back down when China essentially threatened to shoot her plane out of the sky. Now, she's been on the ground for, about 12 hours or so, landing here just after 10:30 a.m. Eastern today. We're going to bring you news about the specifics of her meetings at any moment. Now, remember, trip details have been largely kept under wraps due to the security concerns. But by going ahead with this trip, Nancy Pelosi is defying the White House and ignoring the threats made by Chinese Communist Party leadership.
China's sovereignty cannot be infringed, and the Chinese people cannot be humiliated, and the reunification of China cannot be stopped. The PLA will not, stay idle.
So the reunification of China cannot be stopped. This is the era in which we're living now, which you can simply invade your neighbor, take over, and say, well, we're just reunifying what was once ours, or what we consider ours. And this is because of a number of things. You see Ukraine here on the left in the map, same situation over there. You also have to understand the geopolitical context in which we are. The United States just got their beaten very bad in Afghanistan, putting very much in doubt this idea of being the world leading power. If you cannot beat a bunch of people with AK-47s after 20 years, then how much of a force are you to be reckoned with, right? When you end up leaving after 20 years in such a humiliating defeat, what does that say about you? Also, we're looking at 2 years of people being locked down and complying. The idea of, yes, you comply to force. When you're told to shut up and sit down, people will do that. And the example of Ukraine also just shows that, yeah, we're not beyond this idea of, I'm going to be sending a few tanks, bomb the place, and I'll take it over. It's now mine. I send some of my people and take over this territory, this land. We take over the institutions. We set up our own government there, and in a generation, those people will actually believe, yes, this is how it should be. You're seeing it live unfold yet again in the case of China. So you have China right here, right? You probably are, a lot of people don't even know where they are in that freaking map. But in the case of China, here you have China, here you have Taiwan, here you have Hong Kong, which UK gladly gave away instead of having any kind of trouble with China. This was handed over instead of asking what people wanted to do themselves, right? And here you have Taiwan, which maybe the scale is not all that obvious, but this is like 100 kilometers, 120 kilometers, like 100 miles or so. It's really not all that far. So it's very close to continental China. It means that this can be taken over right away. Now, you just saw what they were saying, what China is saying regarding this. Let's see a little bit more about some of the economic interests in regards to China.
Now, think about all those American companies like Nike and all the hedge funders like Larry Fink. The billions they make in China. It's a country that considers a brief visit by Nancy Pelosi with a longtime ally like Taiwan a humiliation, and then it uses it as a pretext to activate its military.
So yes, she makes a great point about what would be the point here? I mean, is Taiwan about to be invaded? Is it about to suffer like a large-scale embargo and blockade and something that's going to be forcing their hands into surrendering to China? I think that's very likely. Is the United States going to intervene? No, I don't see how that could possibly happen. You don't have to fight those which you already own. And China already owns the United States. All of these companies that she's mentioning, and she's not even mentioned like, 0.1% of what you have really invested in China. From Apple to tech companies, anything being made that's being sold all over the world, basically the entire American economy functions thanks to the slave labor that is allowed in China. Disney will point the finger at you, that evil white patriarchal from the West, right? And people are dumb enough that they fall for it themselves. Yeah, we're pretty evil here in the West. We really should be more like the communists in China. They got it figured out. They don't allow the woke. No, they don't allow the woke in their own country. They don't allow the wokeness and the perversion and degenerate tendencies in their own countries. They pretty much finance it in the West, though. So don't be naive. If you think this is just a pure coincidence that Disney is dedicated to perverting the minds of children in the West, while at the same time editing those same movies so as to be played in China and in Russia, you think that's an accident? Of course not. This is strategic decisions being made and companies that go along with that. You don't have to worry about having to fight a war with the United States when you already own pretty much the economy of the United States. How could you possibly afford to have a war like that? How could you possibly even consider going to war against China or Russia when you couldn't even beat the Afghanis in a country you've been occupying for 20 years? You couldn't even convince the ones that were already on your side, and you couldn't beat the ones that were already shooting at you for the last 20 years. So all of this is really a matter of when China decides to take over. And it's apparently now, because this is what the Chinese are saying. Even more important, that's usually a fact of life. More important than what you say, what is that you're actually doing? And this is what they're doing as of right now.
Aggressive war games by unleashing some of its. China opened its most aggressive war games by unleashing some of its most deadly weapons. 11 ballistic missiles were launched across Taiwan, landing mercifully in the water within pre-designated danger zones. For 5 hours this afternoon, the Chinese military simulated a full-scale attack from the air, sea and land. We saw rounds of artillery set off from the coast where we were filming. Locals were drawn to the beaches on Pingtan to watch the spectacle unfold.
Do you
People
understand?
here, including this Taiwanese restaurant owner, support what China calls necessary defensive measures.
I don't think it's a danger. It's just a warning to them not to cross the line and stop damaging the feelings of compatriots on both sides of the strait.
It's a warning. Do you see how people are convinced of the most outrageous insanity? It's okay, we're bombing them, but we're just letting them know that, I mean, you not being okay with being assimilated into China, you're hurting our feelings, man, so we can bomb you and destroy you.
Taiwan was forced to deploy its missile defense system to track the rockets sent from its belligerent neighbor, and jets were scrambled to monitor Chinese warplanes that once again breached an unofficial dividing line. The Taiwanese government said it is preparing for war, but not seeking it. In Taipei, there was no sense of imminent danger.
I'm not worried at the moment. Personally, I don't think it will happen. China won't easily start a war because of the war between Russia and Ukraine.
Continuing her Asia tour in
The same thing was being said in Kiev right before, just days before they got bombed. In Kiev, people were saying the same thing. Maybe they were packing bags just in case, but they were, it's going to be staying there in the east. They wouldn't dare come, all the way here. And yet we all saw what happened.
South Korea, Nancy Pelosi did not mention the potential crisis she's left in her wake. The Speaker of the House has been branded manic and irresponsible by the Chinese government and to blame for provoking this series of military drills.
What we should bear in mind that this scale of military exercise is normally the cover by totalitarian states for the invasion of various places.
You don't say, really?
If we go back 40 years, the Argentinians used the cover of a similar sort of exercise to invade the Falklands.
The Ministry of Defence has already extended the exercises from 4 days to 5 and added a new target zone on Taiwan's east coast. The entire region is now braced for what could be an extended period of instability. It is clear China can no longer tolerate the status quo with Taiwan. These military drills are a preview to an invasion that looks more likely than ever.
Anyway, guys, it is pretty much unavoidable at this point. I think they're going to be moving pretty fast. Why wouldn't they? I mean, Russia got away with it. Nothing happened. I've been talking about this for months. The idea that the United States or Europe was in any way trying to avoid Ukraine from being invaded is ridiculous. You really need to see through the smoke screen. The idiotic, stupid sanctions that were never in place. They don't sanction the greatest exporter of energy of Russia. They keep on buying energy from Russia. It's just for the crowd to think, oh yes, we're doing this, we're doing something, we're defending Ukraine. You're not defending anything, you're not supporting anything. All you're doing is signing out military contracts of limited capacity weapons simply so as to benefit the elite as always, while giving these much desperate people weapons that are barely enough to kind of defend themselves but not actually have a chance of winning at war, which maybe if they had a little bit of support they would, but that's not the point. The point is not for Russia to leave Ukraine in peace. That was never the intention of the United States or of Europe. It was simply about continuing business as usual with Russia. And if they want to take over Ukraine, so be it. And you think it's going to be any different with Taiwan? Of course not. I mean, do I still get my crap from Taiwan? Do I still keep getting my crap from China? Okay, yeah, we'll pretend to give a fuck about the poor people in Taiwan, but really, we're not going to be doing a damn thing. And you know what? People in Taiwan are not exactly as, the same mentality as the Ukrainians. They'll probably just fold over a little bit faster than the Ukrainians and get over with and continue with their lives under, a totalitarian communist regime, which is what China is. I see this happening pretty fast, guys. I mean, there's no reason why you wouldn't do this. China would be stupid not to take advantage of this opportunity where you see the entire world. I mean, the left certainly is in the side of China and Russia. The left is always defending Russia in their actions against the evil NATO that's always expanding and taking over territory, right? It seems to forget that it's usually very much voluntarily joining NATO because that means the United States is going to be spending money in military for you, in your behalf, so as to keep on getting the money rolling for the military-industrial complex. So, of course, why wouldn't you? Now, very different is what at gunpoint you're forced to join a horrible communist regime or a horrible dictatorship, like in the case of China, like in the case of Russia. Those are pretty much different things. But if you see that the left is very much supporting this, if you see that even elements in the right are, we kind of... Russia is still cool. Putin rides bare chests and horses, and he's stronger than that old stupid Joe Biden. So yeah, why not? Russia's better than us here in America. Why not support Russia in their reconquering of what was once theirs? You have the best political situation right now. You have the best military position. You have the best PR moment at this time so as to do your move and take over the island that you always wanted. Folks, prepare, because this means that the world is going to be getting a lot more complicated for everyone, no matter where you are. You're looking at these guys and their agenda and their way of ruling, and the idea of not just even culture, like I was talking in the previous video, people that have extremely different ideas of what good and evil is. And you're seeing a proliferation of authoritarianism all over the world, because authoritarianism basically wins. You get what you want. If you're brutal enough, if you're savage enough, and with the current situation in terms of convincing people that you're kind of right. I mean, I bombed the crap out of these people. I took over. Fuck you. What are you going to be doing about it? Nothing. So shut up. the more we see this, the more violence you see worldwide. Even in a micro scale, on a local level, you see that people understand that force is the way to go instead of having civil discussion, reason, agreements. No, that was before. That was when the West was in control. Now, the story is completely different. Folks, prepare for what's coming. You have street survival skills for the practical aspect, survival, self-defense. You have surviving the economic collapse based on my experience in Argentina, how to prepare for more poverty, more inflation, recession, which is what you're being told now is going on. Basically, the same stuff we thought we saw in Argentina back in the day. See you on our next video, guys. Take care.